Welcome, everybody. This is Peter Schiff. The countdown to Wednesday's debates continues. Still no mention about the Gary Johnson legal challenge and his attempt to get a restraining order to either prevent Wednesday's debates from taking place or force the debate to include him as a participant. Still waiting for the media to mention it. I'm watching all the networks. There's nothing but stories. I keep reading on the internet all these big stories from major news outlets about the debate. None of them mention even the remote possibility that the debates might not take place, that somebody is challenging them, that several sponsors have dropped out in protest to the fact that the debates are excluding viable candidates. In fact, it makes no sense. I mentioned yesterday, this is a good news story. This is suspense. This is drama. Why would the newspapers, why would the major networks not want this drama? Why would they? Normally they play things up, even if you thought the chances of the debates being canceled were remote, and they probably are remote. He's probably going to lose the court challenge. But you know what? There's drama here. There's suspense. Normally the media wants to play stuff up for ratings. Well, it seems that there's one thing that they care more about than ratings, and that's to make sure that the voters don't recognize that there actually is a viable choice other than the two candidates that nobody really likes, and many people who are voting are going to hold their nose and vote for the lesser of the perceived evils. And if they knew they had a third choice, they would pursue them. In fact, this media coverage, the fact that the third-party candidates like Gary Johnson don't get the press coverage, that is the press's job. You would think a free press in a democracy, which unfortunately we've become instead of the republic that the founders envisioned, but you would think the press would feel an obligation to cover more these third-party candidates who are less well-known, who are not the major parties, to help get their ideas out there for public debate. After all, everybody knows who the Democratic nominee is. Everybody knows who the Republican nominee is. Does extra media coverage really make that much of a difference? They're flooding the airwaves with commercials. I mean, how could you not know Obama? How could you not know who Mitt Romney is? What the media needs to do is make up for that by having more coverage of candidates like Gary Johnson. That's what they would do if they really were unbiased, if this were a free country with freedom of the press. They would be focusing on these lesser-known candidates to get their views out, to make sure that more Americans understand that they're in the race, so that they have an opportunity to be heard, and so that the playing field is somewhat leveled. I mean, this is where the media needs to do its job, is to help inform people that, yes, there are other choices. You're not stuck. You don't have to vote for the Democrat or the Republican, but people feel they're stuck because other candidates are basically blacked out of the media. And if people don't see candidates on television, if they don't see them being interviewed, if they don't read stories about them, if they don't see them as part of the debate, they just assume that there's not a viable candidate. I don't know what people think when they go to the poll and they see Gary Johnson's name on the ballot. They probably assume that it's some kind of a joke, that maybe this is the only state where Gary Johnson's name is on there. Maybe his name is on there because he helped print the ballots. Maybe it's a special favor. Maybe he's connected to somebody and they thought it would be fun to put his name on the ballot. Most people probably look at that name and think, why would I vote for this person just because he's on my ballot? Chances are he's not on anybody else's ballot. I mean, if he really was a viable candidate, wouldn't I have heard about him? Wouldn't the media have covered him? Wouldn't he have been in the debates? I think that is what the networks want people to assume. They want people to assume that there are no other choices so that they vote for the lesser of the two evils and maintain the duopoly in Washington, the Democrats and Republicans. And again, as I said yesterday, I think it's all about access. I think the major Republican and Democratic political figures would basically boycott any network that even acknowledged there was an alternative, there was a viable choice. And I think that's kind of what is the driving force, because I think they want access to these big names. I think they want to be invited to these special press conferences. They want to fly aboard Air Force One and stuff like that. They don't want to be a pariah in Washington. And I think the way that you become a pariah is to cover a third party, because then none of the major parties will have anything to do with you. As long as you keep it between them, then you're in the club and you get access. Other than that, you're out of luck.